talk about our trade-related issues. Let me start with our services sector. Over the past couple of years, we have been seeing a lot of protectionist policies and announcements. And if you look at just 2-3 months in this period, we have seen that a country like US announced a higher American policy. We have seen Australians tighten their visa policy. Even Singapore, with whom we have an FTA, has tightened visa policy. So my question, ma'am, is how does India secure its long-term interest when it comes to protecting our interest of engineers and accountants who want to go abroad and work there?
That is the challenge, not just with the countries where we have an FTA, because even there, although it is one of the features of the FTA, we find that many of the countries have not really kept by the word which is part of the agreement in fulfilling professional movements. So it's now become a bit of a worry, and those issues are now being moved as an agenda for review, which is not actually ideal situation. So instead of being part of an agreement which gets fulfilled, we find that they are not being fulfilled. On the contrary, they are also becoming agenda for the next review. So it is somewhat hurting. It is somewhat disappointing that in spite of the agreements, when it comes to services, we find that countries have raised all kinds of objections, and which were not perceived during the signing of the agreement per se. So countries who probably have benefited by free trade, I granted that it's a very relative term, to what extent free is free. Countries which have professed free trade today are the ones who are also talking about increased protectionism. Countries like India, which have always begun from a very low base, have been cautious as to how much they can open up. Today, when we have a strength in the services sector, the benefits of a free trade are not accruing for us, and therefore it is a big challenge. So it's a question of, do you subscribe to free trade? Yes, we do, but each country has its own definition of to what extent is free. On services, it is a challenge in every negotiation.
Right. Ma'am, I have a couple of questions regarding United States. It's our biggest trading partner. A lot of investments come from US. Now, if you have seen specific comments being made on companies from right at the top level of the US administration, so do we then see hardening of stand from both India and US when it comes to US-India trade relationship? And if push comes to a shove, will India be open to taking trade remedial measures if India's interests in their markets get hampered?
There are a few things which you have put all together into one question. A commercial dispute or a commercial commercial questioning of any particular company is something into which I wouldn't ever enter. It is a commercial contract, and if the terms are not fulfilled, a commercial issue may arise, and that could be between the two partners solved. But on the issue of free trade related matters, or on the issue of trade related matters, on the issue of, let us say, visa, even as I would grant it that it is the prerogative of each country to decide on their visa, but when it comes to the question of such categorized silos of visa which are committed by the two countries, the commitment will have to be kept up. And if the commitment is for some reason being withdrawn, certainly India will be well within its rights. That is, well after talking and using every method to approach and have a negotiation, India will be well within its right to seek remedy through a multilateral institution like the WTO.
Right. Ma'am, my last couple of questions are regarding export sector. In March, we saw a splendid increase in exports, perhaps a 6.5-year increase, and even if FY17, we have seen a positive rise in exports. What is your assessment on export side, given the fact that even WTO has said that 2017-18 will be better compared to previous years?
I think the performance of the exports which has shown a bright side, will be sustained. Indian exports will sustain the improved performance. If anything, they'll improve on it. I don't expect a drastic improvement, but it will continue to keep the momentum, and I see that exports will steady.
So what's this over?
Yes.
What's this over? Right. My last couple of questions. The rupee has appreciated by 5 to 6%. Now, you have maintained that perhaps it's time to look beyond rupee-pegged exports and look at structural reforms to promote exports. Give us a sense of what this means. Do we then see other mechanisms being employed to promote and bring competitiveness to Indian exports?
Yes, I think constantly this comparison is being made between China and India. And that comparison is what I would want to use here to say that India has never grown on the strength of its exports alone. Yes, the exports have been given a lot of incentive, and we want our exporters to perform better, we want more exports. All that said, India, unlike China, did not depend only on its exports to improve its economy or to strengthen its economy. It's a very critical part, yes. But then, therefore, we should understand the difference between China and India, where exports, even if necessary, with a devalued currency, moves forward. Whereas in India, an economy where export is also an important component, and in the last few years, our exporters have seen that currency volatility has become the new normal, and as a result of which exporters have constantly struggled to factor that in, that fluctuation in. The other side of the story is India has also depended, Indian manufacturers have also depended on the big Indian market itself, and for which a lot of handicaps exist. Exporters are affected by that too. The lack of infrastructure, the logistics, the presence of huge handicaps when you're looking at power generation, wherein end of the day, when adequate power is not available, each industry has to set up a captive power plant for which the expense is phenomenal. So your exporter ends up having to do a lot of things which are beyond his core activity. So the lack of infrastructure, lack of fundamentals such as electricity have always been a serious constraint, and therefore I say the fluctuation in currency has been less of a constraint. The importance for these will have to be understood and therefore improved upon, so that our exporter finds himself much more competitive in the global market. Right.
So, do we then foresee, if the rupee, keeps strengthening, obviously it's a function of our Indian economy. FIO says that we are seeing rupee at 62 level. If that is the case, is the government open to giving any relief to exporters?
Well, I'm not going to guess the number which the rupee will reach. But even as it is, because the tide has been so heavy and much against our interests, we have been supporting the exporters with the interest subvention, because interest rates are also, if you compare to the global situation, Indian costs of capital are very high. Borrowing is very high, cost of borrowing is very high, and therefore we have been having an interest subvention scheme. So those are all being reviewed now as a part of the FTP review, foreign trade policy review. Incentives to exporters will definitely be continued, because we want our exporters to perform.
Right, ma'am. I'm ending with a very specific question. It's regarding a specific company, ma'am. A company like Apple, a high-profile company, wants to come here and manufacture in India, but with condition that it needs some duty benefits. My broad question is, do you then see logic in giving duty benefits to companies like Apple, who wants to manufacture in India, not only to Apple but to other companies as well, so that manufacture of cell phones and high-end cell phones and tablets get promoted? Is there a case for giving such benefits to such?
Well, at this stage, I'm not answering in relation to any one particular company. We want India to be a manufacturing hub. We keep that as the guiding principle.
Right. We want India to be a manufacturing hub. That's the message coming in from Commerce and Industry Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining CNBC TV 18. And we hope that your plans on promoting Indian exports and investments, they keep on going. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much.